guys, it is Kayla and Joey from Tactical Response, and in lieu of this past Sunday being Father's Day, we are going to be doing a fatherhood podcast. And we picked one of our favorite dads here. Like, not number one, because that's my dad, but like he ties for second because my husband's a really good dad too. But these questions were submitted by Kyle Gresskamp. He has his own podcast. You guys should go check it out. It is the Mad Patriot podcast, and you can find that on Spotify. But these are the questions that he had sent to James, and then like James has been handing everything off for us to do.
Yep.
So hopefully, like, since Joey has those shoes to fill, it'll give you some early insight. And, like, 50 years from now, they can look back like, I've already answered those questions.
I went to read through these, but then I stopped because I wanted to hear them naturally and try not to game the system too much.
So the first question is failures as a father and how you overcome or corrected them. So we'll focus on like top, like one per kid, because you've got Caleb, Amaya, and Bane.
I would say that my biggest failure and something that I've had to really work on, and I think a lot of people struggle with it, is it's easy to fall into the trap of being too tired, right? You come home from work and then do, your dad stuff around the house and help cook, help clean, do whatever else needs to be done and everything. And it's super easy to just want to stare at your phone and zombie out for a little bit, And I was very, very guilty of that for a while. And so I had to correct that. I had to, especially whenever I wasn't taking testosterone, my energy levels were just...
They plummeted.
Tanked, So, but I have gotten a lot better about it. And so at the end of the day, I try to not say no, right? Like if Caleb or Bane or Amaya, and so for you guys out there, if a kid comes to you, even if you can only do it for 10 minutes, if you like, that 10 minutes will mean a lot, and they hang on to that stuff. So I've gotten a lot better about it.
Great.
Yeah. So
your biggest success as a father?
I would say, let's see, biggest success. I don't know. Like it's so weird
I'm
to
gonna
talk
answer
about.
for you on behalf, because I've seen the successes, and it's a couple, like, two parts. One was the fact that you were willing to step up and raise Caleb and Amaya. And so you pretty much, you adopted them. You have full parental custody.
Right.
And the second part to that is how easy you guys made that transition for Bane. Like, I remember in the beginning, y'all still gave him alone time, and you introduced Caleb and Amaya as his new brother and sister, like, from the jump.
Right.
And then the overall success is that Caleb and Amaya, like, look at you as their dad now. And so you have successfully, like, gotten these three kids to come together and been the head of household, shared with my sister, of course, but head of household, like, and brought them together. And Caleb is an amazing kid.
Yeah.
Like, he's such a great kid, and you're raising the other two the same way. So I feel like they're going to just continue to get better as well. So that, in my opinion,
from the outside looking
the outside looking in, that was your biggest success as a dad, is like keeping on the tradition of step or not blood being a bad word.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like they feel like they're just as much a part of our family. Right. Because I know I feel like they are.
Right. Well, the reason why that doesn't pop to my head at first is because I had an awesome support system, and I tell my family on that side that if it wasn't for Heather, because I wouldn't have went through with it if she wasn't okay with it, So if it wasn't for Heather and James and Rebecca and you, like, to have that support system is why we've been able to do the things we've done,
And then one other part that's not really, like, it is a success as a father, but it's not one that a lot of people think of, is, and I've told people this consistently, like, I could not have handpicked a better husband for my sister.
Oh.
And you are giving especially, like, your boys a blueprint on how to treat their wife because there is nothing but love and respect. And like you saying that is what made me think of it. Like you hold Heather as your partner, as your friend, as your like all of it. And you are giving Amaya a blueprint of what she should look for in a man.
Right.
So you are setting very high standards for them. And that, like, I think that is just as big of a success as the other.
Dang, well, if we're going to just compliment me the whole time, this is going to be my favorite podcast.
Next question, then.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be able to fit in the frame, too, like, if his head gets much bigger.
Yeah, right?
How have you dealt with struggles as a man while being a father? Like, for example, balancing your career at the same time as making sure you get enough kid time in.
Okay, that one's easy. I have had to work more lately than normal, but my general advice for anyone out there is if it's a choice between career or kid time, family time, whatever that means, you should default to family time. Unless I understand, like, deadlines, like something has to get done, you might have to cancel a plan or something like that, or you might have to choose work over family.
But you said choice.
Right, exactly. Like, your default should be family time, because no one who has a family goes to their deathbed and is like, man, I spent way too much time with my family, right? Like, you can Google it, but like the top 5 regrets, like as people are dying, like way up on the list is regretting not spending enough time with friends or family or children or whatever that is. So my default, that's the way I balance it, is I default to family stuff and then focus on the career stuff. I've been doing more of that lately because, we have everything going on here.
But you guys have made up for, like, you have still made it a priority to spend time with the kids even more now that you've been gone more. Like, y'all got to go to Legoland and you do stuff on the weekends with them.
Right.
Like, you're super active. And I think it kind of goes back to that first question, was the failure, like not letting tired be an excuse.
Right.
Only saying no if you have a valid reason, not as your default.
Right.
So, okay, the next question. How to teach or best practices used to show your kids how to be savage gentlemen, or like a similar concept for females?
Savage gentlemen. I think that for the most part, when it comes to raising kids and anyway, what do I know, right? I haven't raised a kid yet. I'm still in the middle of it. So
Caleb's getting close.
Yeah, I'm getting close. Once he turns 18, I'm cutting it off. I'm gonna say I did all this. This is everything you do after that has nothing to do with me. No, I mean it's easy stuff, like respect other people, stick up for yourself, stick up for the people who can't stick up for themselves. Live an honorable life, and that is not. That's gender neutral. Like, it's easy to apply those same rules to your girls if you don't have any sons. Teach your daughters to live an honorable life just like you would if they were your son. That's universal, all encompassing.
And this may blow your head up a little bit, but something I've noticed is that you always lead by example.
I try to. I really do. It's very, very, kids pick up on a lot of things. And as soon as you say, don't do this, but you're turning around and doing the same thing, like, kids, they have no reason to take that serious anymore. I'm not saying that they lose respect for you or anything like that, but that specific thing, they're like, oh,
nobody likes to hear do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
Like, no, like, look at what I'm doing, and that should be what you strive for.
Yeah, so. Absolutely.
Okay. How to focus on being a good father while dealing with the struggles of a marriage.
I don't want to sound too condescending, but not condescending, but too, I don't know. I have a great marriage. I don't know. Like, there's no struggles involved. Like, we fight and argue every once in a while, but like, as far as everything, Heather and I say it all the time, like, we're a team,
So picking a good partner.
Yeah. But she's just as much as I'm there to support her. She's there to support me. We, and it didn't happen naturally. Whenever Bane was born, that first year of his life was really, really hard. Heather and I were adjusting to a baby. We were adjusting to living together full time for the first for the first time, right? You know, we had been dating for a long time, but we had never lived together full time.
And that changes a lot.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, getting married isn't what makes or break a relationship. You know, that's just a piece of paper. But if you've never spent a long time, if you've never lived with someone before, like, no.
Like 6 months in, when the way he chews his cereal
Yeah, exactly.
has you pulling out your hair.
Yeah. But we both understand that communication is the most important thing, so it's easy for us to talk about things. We're very back and forth and everything like that. So I don't even know what the question was. Just
it was focusing on being a good father while dealing with the struggles of marriage.
Yeah, no. Heather and I, we both support each other as far as parental decisions go. Even if we disagree, we that's something that we talk about like afterwards. Like if I'm
you don't fight in front of the kids, you have each other's back in front of the kids.
Right.
Yeah.
And
like a side note, kids would rather have two happy parents than two miserable parents who are together.
Right. Yeah. No, for real. That's something that other people, they think they're like, I have to stay together for the kids.
Nope,
I'm like,
no, you don't.
You are hurting them more.
Yeah, you, like we said earlier, you want to give your kids a blueprint of what to strive for when they grow up. Because
Right.
it's a lot easier when you have a solid blueprint instead of one that just lists a bunch of stuff you shouldn't do.
Right. For sure.
So, did you parent differently for different age groups? Like babies versus preteens, teenagers?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think naturally as kids grow, you change your parenting. You know, like the rules stay the same, and what ends up happening, at least in our house, is we tell the kids all the time, the more freedom you have, the more responsibility you have. So, like Caleb gets to go and do things that the other kids don't get to do, but we expect more out of him at the house. So Caleb is, he's the oldest. 14 years old. And his birthday was in May, so I'm still getting used to it, right? No. So yeah, he's got more responsibilities at the house, but he has more freedoms because of that.
Picking your battles with your kids. Which ones can you let go and which ones need to be made examples of to learn life lessons from? So let's do a top 5 that you would fight them over.
I don't know, because this is my issue. This is my weakness as a father, probably, is I am very super chill for the most part, very go with the flow. And so sometimes I miss out on things that should be made into bigger deals and could be lessons taught and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then Heather is the one who does pick up on those things. So that's why we're a good team, Like sometimes
balance.
yeah, exactly, And so
So what are the things that you felt were important enough to make a big deal about since you are so laid back?
Let's see. A lot of it comes down to what we were talking about earlier with the respecting yourself and respecting other people and stuff like that. Kids get so wrapped up, especially when they're around other kids. And adults do it too. But when someone else is acting shitty, it's real easy for kids to fall in that camp, And so I can't remember. There's only been once where that's happened, where I've had to sit them down and be like, hey, just because other people are doing mean or bad things or whatever, you have to know the difference between right and wrong.
Right.
And you have to choose to do the right thing, right? And so that's happened once.
So how was having Caleb move downstairs and have his own space? Was that even a battle, or was that something where it was no, okay.
Yeah. No, he wanted it, and then the only other thing that we've had where I've hey, it may not seem like a big deal to you, but it is, and it's a lot of keeping your word kind of stuff. Like words matter. So if you tell someone that you're going to do something, it is important to do your utmost to follow through with it, so on and so forth. And so, those are things, all those little things that kids just don't think about. You have to tell them, whether you get on to them or not. There's a difference between blowing it up, letting it go or making a big deal out of it. No, you can teach them a lesson without yelling at them. You can set them down and just say, hey, just so you know, I understand why you did it this way this time, but moving forward, anyway.
And that's something that like I've tried to take into account, like when as an adult, when I make a mistake, all it does when you carry on and on and on about it is just make me feel bad about me, not the mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So like the fact that you brought up, like there's a difference. And once you address it, follow through with what you said you were going to do, and then let it go for the most part.
Right.
Okay. How to work through compromise when your wife and you don't agree on how to raise the kids in general, or when you face a specific topic you both don't agree on without permanently screwing up your kid. Still yet to be determined.
Yeah. No. That doesn't work that way. So I think it's Patton Oswalt, the comedian, who has a joke about it where he's like, everybody's wrong. Like as a parent, everybody's fucking their kid up in different ways, and you just don't know it yet, you know. And then he goes on about how, like, sometimes you'll know it, like you'll say or do something and you're like, oh, that's that's going to leave an emotional scar. But anyway, so no, as far as disagreement between parenting styles, or, you know, whether they should be in trouble for this or that, again, communication is the most important thing. If it comes down to it, like, really it comes down to who believes in which side stronger, right? Like, if the kids do something and I'm like, hey, like, that wasn't that big of a deal, I don't think they should be grounded or whatever. But Heather's like, no, it is a big deal, and here's reasons why. If I can't come up with reasons of why not that are of equal strength or better, then I default to that. And then the same is true in reverse, because at the end of the day, whoever can make the best point is probably right, you know. And and I just default. I know Heather. We've been together for a long time, so I know her sense of judgment. Like, I know that she's not just making crazy judgment calls typically whenever it comes to this stuff. So
back to picking a good partner.
Yeah, and communication. You can, you know, like, even if you're in a tough spot right now where you feel like communication is tough, the only way you get better at it is by doing it. You have to open those doors and start being comfortable with talking to the person that you're going to potentially spend the rest of your life with, who you are working together with to raise eventually adults who are going to be functioning in our society, right? Like, you have to be okay with talking to that person. Yeah.
Ask the hard questions, like when you're still in the dating phase.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if you can't talk to them about, like, the hard stuff, then that's the fun zone.
Yeah.
Not the wife zone.
Yeah.
Okay. How to find common ground and getting your kids to understand you without yelling, or the whole, like, just because, or I said so.
I feel like we've touched on it a bit, but you have to treat kids, you have to understand that they are kids. Right? They aren't adults. They are not fully developed and all that stuff, right? As far as their brain goes and who's it, what's it. But, like, you still have to treat them with respect. And you have to, if you've raised these kids, then potentially, hopefully, you know, they're intelligent, understanding little human beings, and you should be able to sit down and talk with them. Like, I'm not saying I never lose my temper, because I do, and I have yelled and stuff like that, of course, but for the most part, just sit down and talk with them like a person.
Like, I know this is a fatherhood thing, but as a parent, I apologize to my kids whenever I've gone too far, or I blew up on something that, like, I was really just having a bad day with this, and that was the thing. Like, any other day it would have been a big deal. I apologize to my kids. I apologize to my 2-year-old.
I think that is actually one of the things in there. Like, you have to be. That's a huge point. You have to be okay with saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah, mom messed up, like, or dad messed up, right. Like, and that lets them know, one, it's okay to mess up. Right. Like, if mom does it or dad does it, like, it's okay. And two, like, if they forgive you when you say you're sorry, it gives them confidence that forgiveness can work the other way. So they'll be more comfortable coming to you with stuff.
Yeah. And you show them that as an adult, it's okay to admit when you're wrong. We all know people who never admit when they're wrong, and it's super frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You know?
So
if you can't apologize to your kids, at the very least, by you apologizing to them when you're wrong, it shows them, like, oh, Like adults make mistakes, and as they grow up, hopefully they'll be that kind of adult and not some asshole.
Yep.
Anyway.
Oh, here's a good one. Religion. What if you believe and they don't, or they believe and you don't?
Man, I don't want to keep copping out, but communication is the easiest answer to most of these. But like, yeah, I don't, I'm atheist, but so we don't have really any religion in the house. But when Caleb was going to public school, he had buddies who did go to church, and he went to church with them a few times, and I let him, I was like, hey, if they'll come pick you up, that's fine. I don't care. And so he went to church for a while with them, and I don't know what his system is right now, but like I don't push anything on him, but I also don't push back. Like anytime they've come to us with questions and stuff, we just say like, some people believe this, and here's where you can learn more about that. Some people believe that. You can look over here for that. And again, it's just talking to your kids like they're people,
and not forcing stuff on them.
Yeah.
That's something that I've noticed watching you and Heather is like, you don't force your own opinions on your kids.
Right.
You let them make up their mind for themselves, and you give them the room to do that. Because I remember, I think it was when Bain was in his section of homeschooling that was dealing with different religions. And he was asking a bunch of different questions, and Heather didn't steer him towards anything. Like, she let him make up his mind.
Yeah.
With age appropriate, like, this is how this works and this is how this works. And I think that's kind of the answer. It's just not but you shouldn't be forcing anybody to believe the way that you believe.
No.
Like, especially the people you're supposed to love more than anybody else on the planet. Like,
Right. Yeah. For sure.
Okay. School.
Okay.
Public, private, or homeschool?
So right now, all three are homeschooled. Caleb and Amaya both have went to public school before, but when COVID hit and they were going to have to do distance learning and sit in front of the computer for 8 hours a day anyway, we were like, we were already set up homeschooling Bain, so we just brought them over into it. Caleb wants to go back to public school. I really, I enjoy the homeschool. We're kind of in a, I don't know, privileged situation where we get to see them every day if they're homeschool, right? They can come up here to the shop with us and hang out, and but I don't know. It's
you got to find what
tough.
works for your family. Like, it's really easy to sit here and say you should homeschool your children, pull them out of public school, but like it's not an option for me and Alex right now.
No.
Like, both my kids require speech therapy services. We were not allowed those services during COVID unless you were a student at the school, because we homeschooled that first year. But it's really easy to say, do it, but when it comes down to putting food on the table, just make sure you're teaching your kids the right stuff outside of school hours as well.
Yeah.
And, like, I went to public school, and I'm awesome.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I mean, everybody's worried about, not everybody, but, it is a big thing. They're like indoctrination or whatever. If you're talking to your kids, if you're communicating with your kids, which I know James did with you guys, and
Bring
your mom.
back the family dinner.
Right, like if you're talking with them, maybe they'll still believe that stuff, right? Maybe they will still lean that way, but it won't be because they were force-fed that way. They'll be exposed to both sides, and they would have potentially made that choice on their own, and then that's something that you should respect, Anyway.
Yep. The best time to implement strategies to help them become thinkers before doers.
Best time to implement strategies? That's really tough, because I'll be honest and say that we were super hands-on with Bain. So Bain has a hard time doing things on his own because he's worried he's going to do them wrong, or something like that. He hates being wrong. He's not okay with it. Even like if you give Bain something to do that he's never seen before, never heard of before, if he gets it wrong, he is upset. And I'm like, dude, you're not supposed to know this right now. Well, at the time, I was like, you're 6 years old. Like, you're not supposed to know how to do this. Anyway, so we probably
I think that's a personality thing. Like, some people are just going to think, and then some people are just going to do.
Right. But there are definitely strategies that you can do. The more, I believe, we could have started Bain a little bit earlier with introducing him to responsibilities. Because if you compare that to Caleb and Amaya, who came from rocky childhood, they have lived with us since Amaya was 6, Caleb was 7. But up until that point, Caleb was having to take care of Amaya. He was taking care of his 2 younger siblings and all that stuff. So Caleb has always had responsibilities, and he's the most, I would say, most free thinker out of our 3 kids, and he's not afraid to try something new, even if he isn't 100% certain that he knows what he's doing.
Right.
You know. So, when is the right time? I think that's a tough thing to say. Just don't wait so long that that they become scared of trying new things or anything like that.
The best time to give them advice is that when you ask for it, or when they ask for it, or when you think they need to hear it.
A mix of both. If a kid comes to you and says, "Hey, what about this?" you should probably answer that question then and there. But again, those little moments that they're not going to think of that are a big deal, again, trying to keep their word and or respecting others and stuff. Like if you just hear in passing that this thing happened, even if they don't think it's a big deal, you should say something then and explain the situation to them.
When Caleb had that girl that was just dating him,
Yeah.
quote unquote dating him, just to get stuff out of, like, to get gifts, y'all stepped in and you're like, hey, it's cool if you keep doing this,
Right.
but we want you to know what's going on here. So, like, kind of following James's rules, like, anticipate their needs and protect them from
Right,
themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay. How to gain their respect and love without demanding it.
I think if you're doing your best to be a good parent, whatever that means, in general, it means treating them with respect, treating them with love. It's the same thing for regular people in your everyday life. If you treat someone with respect, 9 times out of 10, they're going to give it back to you, And it applies to kids as well. If you treat your kids with the respect that you expect them to return to you, at least like the same level, like you don't have to say yes sir to your kids, but like as long as you treat them like people, they're going to respect you. As long as you extend love to them, don't be afraid to hug your kids, right? Like they're going to return that love. It's super, I don't know, to me it's super simple stuff, but yeah, it's just,
I think that's a huge misconception, though. People look at children as different
right,
than, like, they would a coworker or somebody else. Like, if anything, like, children shouldn't be held to as high of standards as you hold your coworker to,
Right.
because your coworker has a fully developed brain. Your
Right.
kids don't.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
understanding, like, they're tiny humans, and you treat them the same way
Right.
that you do other people can go a long way for a lot of people. Ooh, here's a good one. Are you or should you be 100% honest with them at all times?
No. No, you can't be.
There are too many like fun surprises when they're kids that you want to
Of
keep
course.
surprises.
Yeah, like that's easy, Santa or whatever. But like even whenever it comes to other stuff, like you can't be 100% honest with your kids all the time. Like if you, if you're sitting there like looking at your bills with your forehead in your palm, and your kid comes up and goes, "What's the matter?" You can't be like, "We're gonna lose the house" or whatever. Like
Right.
you can't do that. But like but if they're asking questions, you have to navigate those waters. We've always been super open with the kids when they ask questions about whatever. The whole thing with religion with Bane and Caleb and all kinds of stuff. But you have to navigate those waters. How much do you want to expose them to? How soon?
So you don't want to expose them to stress that they shouldn't stress about. But
Right.
everything else you're really open with. Okay.
Yeah.
Your wife's thoughts on how you were as a father through your succession of fatherhood. I've talked to Heather about this. Like she agrees with me. Like Joey is an absolutely incredible dad. And I think that it was extra like getting to see that with Caleb and Amaya, because they were adopted into it later. Like she didn't get to see you from newborn on.
Right.
So she's she's 100% a fan.
Maybe.
Definitely. What is Amaya's view on how you are as a father?
Oh, I don't know. We'd have to get Amaya on here.
Okay. Life lessons you think all fathers should instill in their children. I think we've already hit on this with the golden rule,
pretty much.
Be kind and take no shit.
Right, yeah. Teach them how to live an honorable life.
Mm-hmm. How do you deal with being scared for your kids?
Yeah, especially, well, I'm just now really getting to that point with Caleb because he's about to start driving and all that stuff. And I wasn't a crazy kid, but I still did things that I'm like, I don't want Caleb doing that, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's such a hard question. How do you deal with it? You just deal with it.
If I may, I think it goes back to like you have to have the kind of relationship that leads to open conversations whenever things start happening. Like I know for me, I've already experienced because my kids are in public school, like so I'm scared for them.
Right.
I'm scared somebody's going to be mean to them. I'm scared
Right.
all sorts of different things. So we have daily conversations about how their day went. We sit down and eat together. And I think that that's the only way to maintain any sanity at all whenever they get older is to keep that conversation open so that they come to you.
Yeah.
Because I don't ever want my kids to be more scared of my reaction than the consequences of the action that they took.
Yeah.
So
to summarize that for you guys, be a part of your kid's life, So if they go to public school, talk to them about what happened at school. Know what's going on in their lives. It's so easy for people nowadays to get wrapped up in their own bubble. Even when you live in a house full of other people, it is easy to not know what happened to the people who you live with throughout the day. So stay a part of their lives. And then the other thing is, again, communication. Because I've already told Caleb as he gets older, like, listen, man, like, I understand peer pressure is a thing. It happened to me. It's probably going to happen to you. Just understand that if you're ever in a situation where you went out with your friends, they've gotten drunk, or you've gotten drunk, or whatever, like you guys are doing no good, just promise me that you'll call me instead of trying to figure it out. A bunch of drunk teenagers trying to figure out how to solve this problem. Just call me. I'll come pick you up. Screw the other kids, but I'll come pick you up and take you home. But yeah, I was like, just don't ever get in a car with someone that you don't trust, their abilities to drive and all that stuff. Like, so just talk with them,
The best way to teach or show them to become leaders.
Best way to teach them or show them how to become leaders? That's a tough one for me because it's something that that I'm struggling with today,
I can tell you what I've seen what y'all do. You've gotten Caleb around strong leaders already. Like from the time that he was really young, he's been around like grandpa, like my dad. He's been around all of these people. So you've given him a ton of people to look up to and footsteps to follow. And I think that is something a lot of people don't think about because raising a child really does take a village. It can't be put on just your shoulders.
Right.
So I think that's one of the things, like as you're learning, you're showing him what you learn.
Right.
But up until like you grew into the leadership position, you made sure that he still had other men who were good at leading surrounding him.
And I also think that ties kind of back into when to introduce them to like more responsibility and stuff like that. If you let your kid have the chance to be a leader, that starts teaching them those things. Let your kid pick what you're going to have for dinner one night out of the week, have them do the grocery shopping and figuring it all out and stuff, or, like put the list together and everything. Like give them chances to be a leader, and that's going to be plenty of practice by the time they're out there in the real world.
And then Caleb is on track to Eagle Scout.
Right.
And that is something that I don't think any of us can recommend highly enough.
Yeah.
Is getting them involved in something like that. If you look at the statistics for Eagle Scouts, like they're very successful as adults.
Right. Yeah. We're pretty lucky to have an awesome scout troop around here. If you guys, yes, I can't recommend it enough. And some people have made it. Amaya's in Scouts. She's in Boy Scouts. She's in Scouts. So definitely get your daughters into it, your sons, if you have an active troop there. The thing is again, you have to be a part of your children's life, so you can't just take them there and drop them off and not, at the very least, you have to know what's going on, so anyway.
How to let your kids be kids, but keep them safe at the same time.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I was just looking online the other day, and it took 5 generations of a family and showed like the area that they were allowed as kids, and it was like the great grandfather had like a 7-mile radius or something like that, would like ride a bike 7 miles to go fishing, and then the grandfather was a little bit tighter, father, so on and so forth. And when it got to the child of the person, they were limited to their street, right? So
I'm looking up a Jordan Peterson quote that specifically talked about this. James and I have discussed it.
Right. How do you let them be kids while still keeping them safe? Again, talk to them, teach them how to be responsible. Talk to them like they're people, and
So the Jordan Peterson quote: "If you're going to make your kids tough, which they better be if they're going to survive in the world, you can't interfere when they're doing dangerous things carefully."
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So setting them up to, like, I know for Christmas, y'all got the kids the skateboard ramp.
Mm-hmm.
You also got them helmets.
Right. Yeah.
So you let them do dangerous things, but you mitigated as many risks as you could while still letting them have that sense of danger.
Right. No, that's very good. Whatever he said.
How to ensure your kids are better than you.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, that's what we all want. We want our kids to have a better life than we had. We want them to be better people than we were, right? We want them to have better opportunities than we had, so on and so forth. So how do you ensure that?
I think everything we've said so far, and everything, especially the tips that you gave, the communication being a huge part of your kid's life, and doing what you can.
Yeah.
That's how, like, you've got to be a good enough person that they want to strive to at least live up to you, and then continue to give them support into adulthood to surpass you.
Right.
Like, being a dad doesn't stop when the kid turns 18.
Right.
Just ask my dad.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure.
How to help your kids become more successful than you.
Okay. Same thing, put them in extracurricular activities, right? All that stuff matters. The Scouts is a big deal for us. The Eagle Scout we're having Caleb work toward. We don't force our kids to do a lot of things, but as parents, sometimes you have to step in, Like, you don't have to make them do something that they are absolutely hating, but if we're like, hey, do you guys want to go to Scouts, or do you want to go to BJJ? It's typically Bane is like, well, not really. I'm like, all right, well, you're going anyway, sorry, But if he was like screaming and crying, no, I wouldn't force him to do it. But sometimes you have to give them that little bit of a nudge, because again, they're kids, and they don't think about the future the same way that adults do, So yes, keep giving them those little nudges, keep them on the right track, and try to set them up for things that are going to teach them the lessons to become successful.
And my dad, James Yeager, made a few notes at the end of this. And a lot of men want sons. And he says that girls equal balance. The more you say you want a son, the more you actually need a daughter. And then the saddest dad moment. Like, I don't know what would be his saddest dad moment.
He didn't put it down
He didn't.
there?
Nope. He just said saddest dad moment. And then there were a couple stories. The two stories that he mentioned were the Munitions story. And that was when Heather and I were much younger.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're talking like first to third or fourth grade area. I'd always been super into guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that such a thing existed.
Right.
So when I got off the bus, he calls me over to show me this quote unquote new gun and then starts shooting us with the force on force rounds. We think he's lost his mind.
Right.
that he's like going crazy.
Yeah.
Me and Heather take off booking it. And the first paint marking rounds that he was shooting us with had red paint in them. So we think we're bleeding.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
As we get almost to the neighbor's house, I look and I see marks on Heather's legs that are blue. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, I don't think this is like what's going on is what's actually going on. Like, those are blue. And Heather, it was so cute. She was like, I must bleed blue.
Yeah.
And we run. Thank God the neighbor wasn't home or we'd have called 911.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that was probably the funniest thing that ever happened. And then one of the hardest things that I know for him, because he says the shooting the dog story.
Right. That's why I think these are his saddest dad moments.
I don't think the Munitions was sad. No, he was laughing his ass off. Now the fight after with my mama, that might have caused him to be sad. But the shooting the dog, it was me, him, and Heather. Mm-hmm. And we had just gotten back to Big Sandy after going on some kind of errand. And as we were pulling in the driveway, a puppy ran under the car tires. And when we got out of the car, he explained to us, he was like, girls, he is suffering. Mm-hmm. Like, it was beyond taking him to the vet to get fixed. Like, he was dying. And he said, I need you girls to go inside so that I can go ahead and end that suffering. Because right now, all that's happening is he's in pain. Mm-hmm. So me and Heather, we're like, yeah, we understand. We go inside, we're sitting there, and the dark humor moment, guys, we hear a gunshot. And then another. And then another. And then another. And he comes back in, and we are bawling. Right. He's like, but girls, you said that you understood. We were like, yeah, but why'd you have to shoot him so much? And it was because, it wasn't effective. He was... Mm-hmm. That dog was a fighter.
Yeah.
And I know that it absolutely broke his heart to know that Heather and I thought anything less than he was taking care of this dog.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said our entire lives is that you can either protect your children from the world or prepare them for it. And if you are protecting them, that runs out the moment they turn 18. Mm-hmm. If you are preparing them, that's everlasting. Mm-hmm. So he has always been very particular about making sure that the things that he was doing was preparing us, not protecting us. Yeah. And that's really hard for moms to let go of sometimes. I know even for me, and I'm a tough mom. Right. It's really hard for moms to let go and do anything other than just keep your baby safe, because that is every instinct in your body is screaming, keep your baby safe, but you have to let them go and do things that, the risk that we were talking about earlier. So, dads, it is your job to make sure that your children are being prepared for the world rather than protected from it. And that the mom and dad combo do really make up a great balance of that, typically.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a partnership. You have to have a good teammate. So someone to be the yin to your yang and all that stuff, you have to have balance, you have to have communication, and whatever your family dynamic is, as long as you have that, you're probably going to raise a well-rounded kid, So final question. If you could offer one piece of advice to anybody wanting to have children. Don't. No, I'm just kidding.
What would it be?
Yeah. Okay. I can probably answer this one pretty good. Because I had to answer this question for a buddy. my buddy Ryan is a Mormon, so he wants a bunch of kids, and his wife and him got married a few years back, but I told him that because he wanted to have kids like then, and I told him, so if you're thinking about having kids, the most important thing is making sure that you're in a position to where you're going to be able to take care of a kid. Don't get in a hurry for it. Heather and I are lucky in the sense that by the time we're 40, like maybe we're going to be kid free, but like that isn't something
I'll be 48.
Yeah, that isn't something that you have to strive for or aim for. It is much more important that if you want to have a kid, be in a position to take care of them and give them the life that you want to give them. There's no other. I don't know. If you don't already have kids, that's the best advice I can give you. Just think about it, work toward living a life that will support that decision.
Yeah.
And if you already have kids, treat them like they're people. Just they're human beings. Talk to them same way when James does the instructor course, right? You have to treat all of your students like they are intelligent and capable. Treat your kids the same way. Just because they're kids doesn't mean that they're not intelligent, because chances are they are. And it doesn't mean that they're not capable. And if they're not one of those two things, barring, something outside of your control, then that was within your control. If you want your kids to be capable, teach them how to be capable, so on and so forth. Okay.
I think that about wraps it up. So a happy belated Father's Day to all of the dads out there. Keep in mind, it does not take blood to be a dad. So happy Father's Day to all of our dads out there. And remember, guys, that your responsibility to be ready for the fight and to prepare your future people to be ready for the fight never ends.